Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Jenny Halpin, and joining us tonight from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Brad Horton. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge His Excellency Mr. Antonis Samoutis, High Commissioner of the Republic of Cyprus, His Excellency Mr. Stavros Venizelos, Ambassador of the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Panagiotis Palouts, Commissioner of the Citizen Government of Cyprus, and members of the Greek and Cypriot communities in attendance, and Major General Gabriel Lima, Assistant of Operations to the Commander-in-Chief, Indonesian Armed Forces, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Virginia State School from Virginia, Queensland. If you are able, may I invite you to stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you are able and require a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal John Hawkes. John Hawkes, known as Jack, was born on the 10th of January 1906 at Gillingham, Kent in England, the son of John and Louise Hawkes. By the time of the Second World War, Hawkes had emigrated to Australia, where he was living with his wife Margaret in Canberra, a Victorian town situated at the edge of the Strzelecki Ranges in South Gippsland. Corporal had rapidly expanded following the discovery of a coal seam in the late 1800s, but 34-year-old Hawkes was unemployed, which may have motivated him to enlist for service. John Hawkes enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force in Melbourne on the 15th of March 1940. He joined a training battalion, but it wasn't long before he embarked from Melbourne for overseas service, doing so on the 5th of May 1940. Whilst at sea, Hawkes was found absent without leave and was fined for this infraction of military discipline. He was then admitted to the ship's hospital with a sprained ankle. Arriving in England, Hawkes was transferred to the newly formed 2nd 31st Battalion, one of 3 battalions formed in the United Kingdom to create the 25th Infantry Brigade. Initially known as the 70th Battalion and based at Tidworth, in October it was retitled the 2nd 31st and relocated to Colchester. During this time, Hawkes was appointed Lance Corporal. After undertaking training, he and his comrades left Britain in early January 1941. They arrived in Egypt in early March, and the 2nd 31st moved to Palestine. In mid-April, the 25th Brigade, of which Hawkes Battalion was part, began to move to Egypt to bolster Allied defences along the Libyan frontier against an expected German attack. In late May, the battalion returned to Palestine to take part in the 25th Brigade's first offensive operation, the invasion of Syria and Lebanon. Hawkes' first major engagement came on the 8th of June, when his battalion was ordered to capture the mountain town of Jazeen, which controlled one of the routes to the Mediterranean coast. Jazeen fell on the 14th of June, but was heavily counterattacked by the Vichy French 2 days later. The terrain around Jazeen was steep, rugged, and the fighting exhausting. The British, labouring under the false assumption that the Vichy French would put up limited resistance, had allocated few aircraft, no tanks, and limited infantry for the offensive. The Vichy French, meanwhile, had air superiority, more infantry, and 2/3 of an armoured division on hand. They were also operating in terrain suited to defensive operations. The battle was still in progress when the armistice was declared on the 12th of July. This was too late for Lance Corporal John Hawkes, who had been killed in action by enemy aircraft on the 18th of June 1941. He was 35 years old. Initially buried near where he fell, his remains were later reburied in the Beirut War Cemetery, where they remain today under the inscription, "Greater love hath no man than this."
They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we shall remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.